Welcome to La La Land, where the red carpet shines bright, but the secrets run deep. It is not all Oscars and standing ovations. Hollywood might sell dreams wrapped in sequined gowns and million-dollar smiles, but behind the velvet ropes there is a much grimier reality. Beneath the flashing bulbs of the paparazzi, many of Tinseltown's most celebrated figures have fought losing battles against their own private monsters. Today, we are ripping the mask off the industry's glamorous exterior to expose the gritty truth about alcoholism among the elite. From the untouchable gods of the silver screen's golden era to the tabloid fixtures of the modern age, these tales highlight the crushing weight of public scrutiny and the sheer grit required to claw your way back from the brink of addiction. Buckle up, because here are 25 of the most legendary names who went to war with the bottle. Number 1. Frank Sinatra. The chairman of the board defined a generation with his velvet voice, but his reputation as a heavy hitter at the bar was just as legendary as his discography. Sources close to the crooner claim he carried on a lifelong love affair with Jack Daniels, sipping it from sunrise to sunset. He was obsessively ritualistic about his poison, too. A proper Sinatra cocktail demanded exactly 4 cubes of ice, 2 fingers of whiskey, and just a splash of water, always served in a heavy crystal glass. It has been whispered that in his prime, he could polish off an entire 5th of whiskey every single day, a feat that baffled medical professionals. While his life played out like a blockbuster movie, the liquid courage often turned into liquid rage. When the liquor took hold, his charisma could evaporate, instantly replaced by a volatile temper that terrified reporters and co-stars alike. One chilling story alleges that his former spouse once barricaded herself in the bedroom merely at the sight of him holding a gin bottle, knowing it triggered his mean streak. To understand the sheer volume he consumed, consider this: Sinatra and his circle of A-list pals jokingly branded themselves the American Olympic drinking team. When he finally took his final bow in 1998, at age 82, his legacy was forever linked to the bottle. In a final poetic gesture, he was laid to rest with a flask of his beloved Jack tucked right beside him for the afterlife. Number 2. Johnny Depp. As one of the most transformative character actors in cinema history, Depp has captivated audiences for decades. Yet his off-screen narrative has been dominated by a chronic war with intoxication. Despite his undeniable charm and box office dominance, his existence has often been a chaotic blur of substance abuse. While he is known to enjoy a whiskey, his appetite for vintage wine is the stuff of legend, with reports suggesting his monthly wine tab ballooned to tens of thousands of dollars, a truly staggering sum. For Depp, the bottle served as both a crutch and a wrecking ball. He has confessed that numbing himself was the only way to survive the crushing pressure of superstardom and heartache. At the height of his struggles, insiders painted a picture of a man on a days-long bender, with his behavior spiraling into unpredictability. The lovable rogue he played on camera often disappeared when he was under the influence, creating a toxic atmosphere for cast and crew who had to walk on eggshells around his shifting moods. The true extent of this toxicity was dragged into the light during his high-profile defamation trials, where grim testimonies detailed alcohol-soaked rages and destruction. However, Depp hasn't shied away from the truth. He has openly discussed his attempts to sober up, utilizing therapy and pouring his soul into painting and rock music to process his trauma. Today, he stands as a polarizing survivor, proof that immense talent offers no immunity against the darkness of addiction. Number 3. Shia LaBeouf. A raw creative powerhouse. LaBeouf has unfortunately spent much of his career making headlines for his volatility rather than his performances. His journey has been defined by a turbulent relationship with the bottle that frequently derailed his momentum. Known for his extreme dedication to his craft, that intensity often bled into his personal life, where alcohol became his primary method for numbing the pain of a traumatic upbringing and the glare of the spotlight. During his darkest periods, his life was a revolving door of public humiliation, with bar brawls and run-ins. With the law becoming routine, the booze acted as gasoline on the fire of his emotions. Friends noted that a few drinks could transform him from a charming artist into a belligerent nightmare in the blink of an eye. The world watched in horror as viral videos surfaced, showing him in intoxicated rages screaming at law enforcement and strangers alike. Rock bottom finally arrived after a particularly notorious arrest, where his aggression toward officers was caught on body cam, forcing him to confront the reality of his situation. Since then, LaBeouf has retreated from the chaos to seek serious help, crediting inpatient rehab therapy and a newfound spiritual awakening as the pillars of his sobriety. While his path back to grace has been rocky, his story serves as a brutal, cautionary tale about how easily addiction can dismantle a promising future. Number 4, Leonard Nimoy. While the world will always remember him as the logical, despite his undeniable raw talent, he eventually confessed that he turned to the bottle to manage the crushing weight of global fame, and his own personal agony describing the substance as both a liberating release and a toxic, destructive habit. LaBeouf's descent into a drinking spiral coincided with his early rise to stardom, resulting in a series of messy public incidents that mirrored the absolute chaos consuming his private life. From violent bar brawls to multiple arrests, his conduct grew increasingly volatile and erratic, usually ignited by excessive alcohol consumption. The paparazzi frequently captured his wildest antics on video, revealing a tragic portrait of a man fighting a losing war against his own inner demons. Friends and insiders have revealed that his temperament was a ticking time bomb whenever he was under the influence, snapping instantly from a charismatic risk-taker to a belligerent aggressor hell-bent on self-sabotage. His internal battle eventually hit a catastrophic breaking point following a string of embarrassing headlines, culminating in a viral arrest video where his drunken state escalated into vicious verbal aggression toward law enforcement officers. In the wake of this rock bottom, LaBeouf sought professional help, checking into rehab, and eventually getting candid about his harrowing journey through addiction and mental health instability. He attributes his survival to intense therapy, burying himself in creative outlets, and finding a renewed connection with his spiritual side as crucial milestones in his recovery journey. While LaBeouf's road to redemption has been incredibly rocky and uneven, he stands as one of Hollywood's most compelling enigmas. His story serves as a harsh warning about the heavy toll that accompanies massive fame and the immense grit required to face one's darkest moments. Coming in at number 4 is Leonard Nimoy, though the next story of profound change. Forever immortalized as the fiercely logical Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy hid a chaotic secret behind that stoic alien expression. While filming the groundbreaking Star Trek franchise, he was secretly wrestling with a severe alcohol dependency that few fans knew about. Even Nimoy himself later confessed that the booze became his only escape from the exhausting, never-ending days on set. His co-star and frenemy William Shatner revealed that Leonard used liquor as a protective armor against the crushing weight of global stardom. What began as a casual ritual to unwind quickly spiraled into a full-blown compulsion driven by an addictive personality type. Fortunately, once the cameras stopped rolling on the original series, Nimoy recognized the danger and checked himself into rehab to fight his demons. Sadly, while he managed to kick the bottle, he swapped one vice for another, falling into a heavy smoking habit that would ultimately prove fatal. This tragic trade-off led to chronic lung disease claiming his life at the age of 83. While Spock lives on forever, his private battles remain a chilling reminder of the very human frailty hidden behind our most indestructible sci-fi heroes. Number 5, Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just a star, she was the violet-eyed queen of Hollywood's golden age. But behind the glamour, she fought a vicious war with booze and pills. In 1983, she shattered taboos and grabbed headlines by becoming the first major superstar to voluntarily check into the Betty Ford Center. This world-famous clinic established by First Lady Betty Ford was a sanctuary for those drowning in substance abuse, and Taylor needed a lifeline. Inspired by Betty Ford's own courageous public recovery, Taylor's brave choice to admit she had a problem changed the celebrity narrative forever. Instead of hiding in shame, her decision to face her demons head-on marked a monumental turning point not just for her, but for celebrity culture itself. By stripping away the facade and asking for help in the public eye, she single-handedly helped dismantle the massive stigma surrounding addiction treatment. She showed the world that recovery was possible, even for the rich and famous. But getting clean was just the first act of her second life. With a clear mind, she found a calling far greater than the silver screen, transforming into a fierce, relentless crusader for AIDS awareness. Leveraging her massive celebrity status, she raised millions of dollars and forced the world to pay attention to critical research and education. Her evolution from a tabloid fixture battling addiction to a heroic activist is a legendary tale of redemption and grit. She proved that rock bottom can be a foundation for greatness, inspiring millions to seek help. Number 6, Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore is America's sweetheart, known for her bubbly charm and hit talk show, but her road to this happy ending was paved with early tragedy. Beneath the glowing smile lay a dark history. As a scion of the legendary Barrymore acting dynasty, she was thrown into the fire of fame as a toddler. Her childhood was essentially stolen. Raised in nightclubs rather than playgrounds, she was fighting serious addiction battles before she could even drive. Drew has been brutally honest about using liquor to numb the intense pressure of being a child prodigy and the chaos of her family life. It wasn't just teenage rebellion, it was a downward spiral. Occasional drinks turned into dangerous binges that threatened to snuff out her star before it truly rose. She was partying with a self-destructive intensity that terrified those around her, leading to her first rehab stint at the shocking age of 13. It took multiple attempts to get clean, with headlines splashing her troubles across every tabloid documenting her desperate fight for control. Insiders from that era recall her wild mood swings, bouncing between being the charismatic life of the party and a broken young girl drowning in emotion. But Drew refused to be another Hollywood tragedy. Through years of grueling self-work and therapy, she clawed her way out of the darkness. Today, she stands tall as a sober powerhouse, not just an A-list actress, but a vocal champion for mental health, destigmatizing the conversation. She uses her traumatic past as a tool to connect with and help others, proving that your history doesn't have to dictate your future. Drew's journey is the ultimate comeback story, reminding us that even the most troubled child stars can find their way home. Number 7, Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is a heavyweight in the industry, an Oscar-winning director and actor, but his shadow side has been just as visible as his success. His war with alcoholism has played out on the front pages of magazines for decades. Despite having it all, Ben has fought a long, hard battle with the bottle. Sources say his poison of choice was usually whiskey, a crutch he leaned on heavily whenever the pressures of Hollywood or his personal life boiled over. When the stress mounted, so did the drinking. Insiders revealed that during his darkest periods, the alcohol became his primary coping mechanism. He would reportedly vanish for days or weeks, retreating from the public eye to drown his sorrows, leaving friends and family in a state of panic. This reckless behavior torched more than just his reputation. It wreaked havoc on his personal life, creating deep fissures in his closest relationships. The booze became the third wheel in his marriage to Jennifer Garner, eventually cracking the foundation of what seemed like a perfect Hollywood union. Garner was a saint through much of it, reportedly staging multiple interventions and practically begging him to get professional help for the sake of their family. Hitting rock bottom more than once, Ben checked into rehab facilities several times, publicly admitting he was powerless over alcohol and needed to reset. Despite staggering relapses that were caught on camera, Affleck's persistence has been admirable. He keeps getting back on the wagon, determined to fix his life. In recent years, he's dropped the facade, speaking candidly about the grueling daily grind of sobriety and the genetic component of his addiction. He even brings a bit of levity to the struggle, now joking that his only drinking buddies these days are his kids swapping scotch for juice boxes. Ben's ongoing saga is a raw look at the highs and lows of recovery, proving that even Batman isn't immune to the allure of addiction. It is a testament to the power of bouncing back, and although the road to recovery is a lifelong trek, his raw honesty has shown the world a vital truth. Even Hollywood's biggest icons are not invincible against life's hardships, and it is never too late to wave the white flag and ask for support. Number 8. Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry is immortalized in pop culture history as the sarcastic and lovable Chandler Bing on Friends, a role where he stole millions of hearts with his quick wit and self-deprecating charm. Yet when the cameras stopped rolling and the laughter faded, Perry was fighting a brutal secret war against alcohol and substance dependency. During the absolute peak of his global superstardom, he was drowning in personal demons, frequently turning to the bottle to survive the crushing pressure of fame and his own crippling insecurities. This addiction cast a long, dark shadow over his professional life, with Perry himself confessing that he was trapped in a vicious merry-go-round of artificial highs and devastating lows, desperately trying to numb his internal pain. Although he fought hard to keep up appearances and protect his public image while working, the physical toll was undeniable, leading to multiple trips to rehabilitation centers and several terrifying near-fatal medical emergencies. His castmates from the hit sitcom have since opened up about the heartbreaking reality, noting how they watched their friend transform from the hilarious, laid-back guy everyone adored into a man completely swallowed whole by his vices. However, Matthew Perry was a fighter who refused to stay down. He spent years battling his way back, undergoing extensive treatment and advocating for recovery. Tragically, this lifelong war would eventually claim him as he passed away on October 28, 2023, with reports citing the acute effects of ketamine. Number 9. Brad Pitt. For over 3 decades, Brad Pitt has dominated the box office as both a leading man and a heavyweight producer in the film industry. But behind the golden boy image and the red carpet success, he was quietly wrestling with a long history of substance reliance. Following a highly publicized split and an intense custody dispute back in 2017, Pitt decided to come clean about his sobriety journey. In a raw and revealing interview with GQ magazine, the actor confessed to using booze as an escape route to avoid dealing with his heavy emotions. After spending several months completely dry, he finally felt capable of facing his inner turmoil. He reflected that this is part of the human experience, stating that you can either run from your feelings forever or face them head-on to grow. His insights highlight how getting wasted is often just a band-aid for deeper emotional wounds, serving only to numb the pain rather than fix the problem. Number 10, Daniel Radcliffe, best recognized as the boy who lived in the massive Harry Potter franchise. Daniel Radcliffe has been very open about how he turned to the bottle to manage the overwhelming pressure of becoming an instant global superstar overnight. While he loved acting, Radcliffe admitted that he started locking himself away to dodge the paparazzi and the constant public judgment. He eventually realized that his personality had an addictive streak, and it was only through the tough love and support of his inner circle that he found healthier mechanisms to cope. In a 2012 sit-down, Radcliffe confessed that his partying had become toxic, wrecking both his body and his social life, causing him to withdraw from real connections. Despite the daily struggle of staying sober, he revealed in that same interview that stopping was the best decision he ever made, opening the door to a level of joy and clarity he never dreamed existed. Number 11, Ewan McGregor, the Scottish star famous for masterpieces. Like Trainspotting and Moulin Rouge, has enjoyed a stellar run in Tinseltown, but off-camera he was fighting a serious drinking problem. The relentless stress of being an A-lister drove McGregor to self-medicate with alcohol just to get through the day. Even though he was passionate about his craft, he confessed that the fishbowl existence of celebrity life led him to rely on the bottle. In various discussions, McGregor has been transparent about the toll this took, realizing that his consumption was spiraling out of control and threatening his physical health, his personal relationships, and his sanity. He knew deep down that he had to quit cold turkey to steer his ship back on course. McGregor credits the unwavering backing of his family and friends for getting him through the darkness as they stood by him when he decided to put the glass down for good. Since kicking the habit, he has shared that sobriety has granted him a much more peaceful and grounded existence, giving him a sense of happiness and presence of mind that was impossible to find while he was drinking. Number 12. Peter O'Toole. With his piercing blue eyes and legendary talent, it is hard to reconcile the image of Peter O'Toole with that of one of the industry's most notorious hellraisers. Telling stories to David Letterman, O'Toole explained that his wild habits were largely a result of his era's culture, where heavy drinking was just part of the job description, regardless of the consequences. He even argued that being tipsy actually improved his acting performance. A classic tale from the set of Lawrence of Arabia proves this point, specifically regarding the camel charge scene. Both O'Toole and his co-star Omar Sharif were terrified of the animals, so they decided to get absolutely hammered before the cameras rolled. They called it liquid courage, a testament to the extremes actors would go to just to get the shot. When asked about it later, O'Toole laughed and admitted he was so wasted he couldn't remember a single moment of filming that iconic sequence. Number 13, Colin Farrell. Known for his electric intensity and undeniable screen charisma, Farrell is a force of nature. However, his road to the top was anything but smooth, paved with a chaotic and public battle with his vices. During the early days of his Hollywood takeover, Colin Farrell found himself trapped in a vicious cycle of heavy drinking and substance misuse, using intoxicants as a crutch to survive the suffocating pressures of global stardom and his own internal chaos. His reputation for wild booze-fueled nights became legendary, with the actor constantly splashing across tabloid front pages for his dangerous antics and unpredictable conduct on and off set. Farrell has since come clean about the toxic nature of his relationship with the bottle, admitting he was completely spiraling out of control during his meteoric rise to the A-list. What started as a coping mechanism to handle the intensity of the spotlight quickly morphed into a full-blown addiction that nearly destroyed his entire existence. His inner circle watched in horror as he swung between emotional extremes, often isolating himself from loved ones, or diving into a bottle to numb the pain. However, after enduring multiple trips to rehabilitation centers and facing the brutal truth of his dependency, Farrell made a solemn vow to overhaul his lifestyle. These days, the actor is living clean and has emerged as a powerful voice for sobriety, sharing his gritty backstory to inspire others who are fighting their own wars against addiction. Number 14. Robin Williams. Robin Williams was far more than just a comedy icon and a silver screen legend. He was a man who fought a decades-long complex war against alcoholism. That is correct, despite his manic, larger-than-life public persona. Williams was fighting a quiet battle behind the velvet curtain. He never shied away from discussing his vices, explaining that they were born from deep-seated loneliness and the crushing weight of celebrity. His lowest points, he confessed to drowning his sorrows to silence his mind. His poison of choice was scotch, a drink he sarcastically referred to as the nectar of the gods, even though it delivered hell rather than salvation. Williams's journey with the bottle was a turbulent ride marked by stretches of clean living shattered by painful relapses. One of his darkest periods hit during the 1980s, an era when his star power was going supernova while his private world was falling apart. He often characterized booze as a fleeting vacation from the heavy burden of reality, but the hangover was always a brutal return to earth. Close friends and castmates noted that his personality would undergo a terrifying shift when intoxicated, his electric charm fading into dark moments of seclusion and crippling self-doubt. In his final chapters, Williams fought hard to right the ship, checking into treatment and openly addressing his recovery journey. He relied heavily on his family professional help and a renewed passion for acting to stay on the wagon for years at a time. Yet the emotional wounds from his battles remained, and the hidden pain he carried became a tragic piece of his complicated history. When he left us in 2014, the world didn't just grieve for a generational talent, but for a warrior who had battled fiercely against the demons in his head. His legacy stands as a stark reminder of the invisible struggles many endure, even those wearing the biggest grins. Number 15. Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse was a musical force of nature with a voice soaked in soul and a style that defined an era, yet she was one of the most tragic figures of her time. Beyond the chart-topping hits, Winehouse was locked in a lethal dance with alcohol and hard drugs. Her downward spiral was ruthlessly chronicled by the press, with her chaotic personal drama frequently eclipsing her undeniable musical genius. For Amy, the bottle became a desperate shield against the emotional torment she endured, fueled by toxic romances and the relentless glare of her sudden superstardom. Despite her massive achievements, Winehouse's dependencies took the wheel, resulting in shocking scenes on stage and in the streets. Those closest to her looked on in despair as her reliance on substances deepened, and she became infamous for shambolic concerts and public breakdowns. Amy made no secret of her demons, and although she attempted rehab several times, the shadows refused to let her go. Heartbreakingly, in 2011, at the tender age of 27, Amy Winehouse's flame was extinguished, a casualty of her own excesses. Her passing served as a gut-wrenching wake-up call about the perils of addiction and the toxic pressure cooker of fame. Number 16. Stephen King. Stephen King is hailed globally as the king of nightmares and one of history's most productive storytellers, but amidst his triumphs, King was living his own horror story, fueled by booze and narcotics. During the years when he was churning out hits, King used alcohol as a crutch to handle the stress of celebrity and the demanding juggling act of fatherhood and writing. What began as a casual Drink after work quickly mutated into a monster that threatened to destroy his health, his marriage, and his gift. King Albert has been brutally honest about those lost years, admitting that he has zero memory of penning some of his most legendary books, including Cujo, because his brain was so fogged by chemicals. His problem wasn't just restricted to liquor. It involved a cocktail of drugs that led to a chaotic era where his actions became unpredictable and dangerous. His family and circle were terrified, yet King's internal war was largely concealed by his image as a literary titan. By the late 1980s, King hit a wall and finally accepted help checking into a facility to face his demons head-on. He attributes his survival to his wife's intervention and his love for storytelling, slowly clawing his way back to sobriety and reclaiming the steering wheel of his life. These days, King is clean and utilizes his dark past to champion the cause of recovery, sharing his truth in both his personal life and lived to tell the tale. Number 17. Mel Gibson. While Gibson is cinematic royalty, best known for directing and starring in legendary epics like Braveheart, and the adrenaline-fueled Lethal Weapon franchise, his intense on-screen charisma hid a dark secret. That fierce determination wasn't just for acting, it was also used to mask a serious decades-long war with the bottle. Behind the golden statues and box office records, Gibson was fighting a losing battle against severe alcohol addiction during the absolute peak of his Hollywood reign. He initially used liquor as a crutch to handle the crushing weight of stardom and his own inner demons. But what started as knocking back a few casual drinks rapidly spiraled into a dependency that he couldn't control. This fueled unpredictable rages, shocking public meltdowns, and severely damaged his personal relationships. The world got a front-row seat to Gibson's demons, especially following his infamous DUI arrest in 2006, a scandal that laid bare the true depth of his problem. His carefully crafted image was shattered. His career took a massive nosedive, and his reputation was dragged through the mud. Thanks to controversial outbursts that were almost always fueled by intoxication, it looked like the end of the road. Yet despite these career-ending disasters, Gibson refused to stay down. He checked himself into rehabilitation centers multiple times, fighting tooth and nail to wrestle his life back from the grip of addiction. In more recent years, Gibson has dropped the facade, speaking brutally honestly about his alcoholism and owning up to the pain he inflicted on himself and everyone. In his orbit, he says his sobriety is a miracle born from a mix of professional therapy, a rediscovery of faith, and family loyalty. Number 18. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan was once the undisputed queen of teen cinema, dazzling audiences in hits like Mean Girls and The Parent Trap. She had the world at her feet, but behind the red carpet, Glamour, Lohan was drowning. Her rapid rise was plagued by a heavy reliance on alcohol and substances that threatened to completely eclipse her undeniable talent. As the suffocating pressure of being a child star grew, she began using drugs and booze to numb herself against the relentless paparazzi and the dysfunction of her family life. What began as a party girl lifestyle to blow off steam quickly turned into a trap, spiraling into a dangerous and life-threatening addiction. This led to a revolving door of rehab stints and a laundry list of embarrassing public incidents. Lohan's chaotic battle became a daily headline for the tabloids, with the world watching her life fall apart in real time. From mugshots and court dates to being labeled a nightmare on movie sets, it seemed inevitable that her personal struggles would be the only thing she was remembered for. Despite trying to get clean multiple times, the road to recovery was rocky, filled with painful relapses, as she continued to fight her demons well into her adult years. However, the narrative has finally shifted. Over the last few years, Lohan has made incredible progress towards sobriety, candidly discussing the heavy toll that lifestyle took on her soul. With a strong support system, therapy, and sheer grit, she has managed to pull off a comeback, successfully rebuilding both her sanity and her place in Hollywood. Number 19. Carrie Fisher. Immortalized as the rebel Princess Leia in Star Wars, Fisher was celebrated not just for her acting chops, but for her razor-sharp wit and fearless honesty about her mental health. However, behind the galactic fame, Fisher was fighting a very grounded battle with pills and alcohol that started when she was just a teenager. As the intensity of being Hollywood royalty increased, she leaned heavily on substances to silence her emotional pain and the mental stress of her industry status. What started as a coping mechanism to handle the spotlight soon morphed into a terrifying cycle of dependency that wreaked havoc on her romantic partnerships and her professional reputation. But Fisher never hid in the shadows. She owned her narrative. She famously used self-deprecating comedy to disarm her demons in interviews, and her writing turning her trauma into art. She even laid it all bare in her best-selling memoir Wishful Drinking, where she chronicled the absolute absurdity of her addiction and her hard-fought journey toward getting clean. Throughout her life, Fisher bounced in and out of treatment, facing the brutal highs and lows of sobriety, but her resilience and ability to laugh at herself ultimately helped her take the wheel back. Tragically, Fisher passed away from cardiac arrest in December 2016 at age 60, but she left the world as a warrior who had conquered her addiction. Number 20, Robert Downey Jr. Today, Robert Downey Jr. is a legend, the face of franchises like Iron Man and Sherlock Holmes. But his path to becoming the highest-paid actor on the planet was paved with broken glass. Behind the charisma, Downey Jr. fought a terrifying war against heroin and alcohol that almost erased him from history. His exposure began shockingly early. His own father introduced him to drugs when he was just a child. By the time he hit his 20s, Downey Jr. was trapped in a destructive spiral, using substances to numb his insecurities and handle his rising fame. His addiction wasn't a secret. It was a public spectacle involving jail time, wandering into neighbors' homes, and court-ordered rehab. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, at his absolute lowest point, he was uninsurable erratic, and his career was effectively dead and buried. But after hitting a rock bottom that would have killed most men, he made the life-or-death choice to get clean, starting a grueling climb back to the surface. His dedication to staying sober, bolstered by the love of his wife and a renewed obsession with his craft, allowed him to slowly piece his life back together. Today, Robert Downey Jr. is one of the most respected figures in the industry, and his resurrection from inmate number P50522 to superhero is the ultimate redemption story. Number 21, Bradley Cooper. Now an Oscar-nominated heavyweight for films like The Hangover and A Star, Cooper is one of the most admired leading men in the business, but his ascent wasn't a straight line. Cooper fought a quiet battle with alcohol and substance abuse during his early days in Los Angeles, turning to chemicals to deal with his insecurities and the crushing pressure to succeed. Personal doubts and deep-seated insecurities. What started as casual social drinking quickly spiraled into a terrifying cycle of addiction that began to poison his closest relationships and deteriorate his mental well-being. Cooper has never shied away from the ugly truth, admitting that his dependency on the bottle almost completely derailed his Hollywood trajectory. The massive turning point arrived when he stared into the abyss, realizing he was seconds away from losing absolutely everything, including his physical health and his happiness. In his early 30s, Cooper made the brave choice to enter rehab, fully committing himself to a clean lifestyle. With intense therapy and family backing, he regained the driver's seat of his life. Today, Bradley Cooper is a cinematic titan and a loud voice for recovery. 22, David Hasselhoff. The Hoff is legendary for his iconic roles in Knight Rider and Baywatch, where his massive charisma and cheesy but lovable catchphrases made him a global superstar. But while the cameras rolled, Hasselhoff was fighting a very dark, very public war with the bottle. The booze became a central antagonist in his life, especially when he was at the peak of his fame and the tabloids were merciless in documenting every slip-up. The crushing weight of superstardom mixed with private drama led him to use alcohol as a crutch, resulting in some truly humiliating public spectacles. Hasselhoff's battle with the bottle was splashed across every magazine cover, involving multiple trips to rehab and messy run-ins with the police. His erratic behavior grabbed headlines, causing deep fractures in his relationships with family. Despite these brutal setbacks, Hasselhoff eventually let the gravity of the situation sink in and started the long, grueling climb back to sobriety. He has been brutally honest about his addiction, admitting it nearly torpedoed both his career and his private world. In recent years, the actor has fully embraced a sober life, using his nightmare to inspire others who are fighting the same demons. His journey proves that no matter how bright a star shines, addiction doesn't discriminate. Today, David Hasselhoff remains a fixture in entertainment, and his lived experience serves as a stark reminder that overcoming substance abuse is a brutal but winnable war. It is a key part of his legacy, proving that redemption is real. 23 Demi Lovato. Known for those powerhouse pipes and breakout roles in Camp Rock and The X Factor, she has been a pop culture staple for what feels like forever. However, her road to stardom was paved with serious potholes, specifically a harrowing history with booze and hard drugs. Lovato was dealing with these demons way too young, numbing the insane pressure of the industry with substances. It started as teenage experimentation to handle the stress and mental health battles, but it rapidly turned into a monster that wrecked her health. What began innocently soon morphed into a destructive addiction that threatened her career. Lovato's fight was tragically public, marked by rehab stays and a terrifying overdose in 2018 that nearly claimed her life. Despite the horror of that night, Lovato has been incredibly raw about her journey, using her massive platform to shine a light on mental health and the reality of recovery. Her refusal to hide her scars and her willingness to share. Her story have turned her into a warrior for anyone fighting addiction. Today, Demi Lovato is walking the path of sobriety, using her voice to guide others out of the dark. 24 Zac Efron, the guy who stole hearts in High School Musical and cemented himself as a Hollywood heavyweight, has been on our screens for ages. But behind that perfect smile, his ascent was riddled with hidden battles, mostly involving alcohol and substance issues. Efron faced these challenges right when he was the biggest heartthrob on the planet, using partying to handle the suffocating scrutiny and his own insecurities. Unlike others, he managed to keep his demons mostly behind closed doors, masking the struggle until he quietly checked into rehab in 2013. Despite trying to keep up appearances, his addiction caused some serious career stumbles, and his behavior became increasingly unpredictable and erratic at times. However, he eventually grabbed the reins, facing his issues head-on and working tirelessly toward a clean life. Through intense therapy and a tight family circle, Efron committed to cleaning up his act, using his past to talk about the gritty reality of substance abuse. Today, Zac Efron is sober and stands tall as an advocate for a mental wellness and recovery. 25 Jamie Lee Curtis, the ultimate scream queen from Halloween and True Lies, has been Hollywood royalty for decades. Yet her glittery resume hides a jagged path, specifically a secret war with dependency. Curtis was hooked on alcohol and painkillers for a long time, numbing the stress of her lineage and the emotional weight of the industry. What started innocently enough, just taking the edge off, quickly spiraled into a full-blown dependency that threatened to rot her life from the inside out. Curtis has since been incredibly candid about her battle, describing how the drugs hijacked her existence before she finally woke up. Centers on a different icon. After years of silent struggling, she finally entered rehab and made the tough choice to embrace sobriety, starting a journey to recovery that was paved with obstacles. Yet fueled by sheer determination, therapy, and the unwavering support of her family, Curtis was able to take back full command of her destiny. Since getting clean, she has leveraged her platform to have raw, honest conversations regarding dependency, mental well-being, and the vital necessity of healing. These days, Jamie Lee Curtis is not just living a sober life. She has become a fierce champion for others seeking freedom from addiction and a loud voice for anyone fighting those same silent battles. Her story reminds us that even though these icons appear flawless and untouched on the red carpet, they are fighting monsters just like the rest of us. However, their lives serve as powerful testaments to the triumph of the human spirit over the chains of addiction. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel